there was one Friday night where I'm in my bedroom just hacking away, and I hear all my friends in the living room having a good time, you know, throwing back some beers. And they go like, I hear them go like, where's Jacob? Where's Peters? Like, what's he up to? And another one like makes a joke like, he's probably working on startup stuff. You know, and
like kind of like a dig.
Yeah, kind of like a dig. Exactly. Those words just became like seared into my brain. So on all the tough nights, you know, on all the, you know, sleepless, like, you know, nights sleeping on couches, like those words would just like, you know, bubble back up because my ego was like, don't forget this. Don't forget that this is, you know, what they're going to think. And it really drove me. And I think, you know, I sort of was able to use this as like a positive, healthy force to channel through.
I'm Tom Ward, and over the last couple of years, I've had the chance to sit down with some of the biggest celebrities and influencers in the world. What I've always found most fascinating is the stories of the businesses that they've built behind the scenes. On this show, you'll get an inside look of what it takes to build a successful business from some of the biggest celebrities, business people, and up-and-coming entrepreneurs in the world. This is The Tom Ward Show.
Welcome to The Tom Ward Show, where we talk to the biggest entrepreneurs in the world. Today we have Jacob Peters, a very successful entrepreneur, startup founder, also community builder, and he's been doing it really since he was a kid. And that's what I want to talk about first. You've literally, and we'll talk about it, whether it's Legos, Lego people, or data scientists, or whatever, you were building communities, and now it's a huge buzzword. Every CPG brand talks about, every brand really talks about building community first. You were way ahead of it. Do you think that's your superpower? If you had one skill set, like your best one, do you think that's it?
Well, the you know, the secret to community building is you have to tap into somebody's true, deep sense of identity, right? And it's this phenomenon that's like very core to us being humans, right? Like identity is everything. And for me as a kid, like, you know, when I was, you know, 12, 13 years old, for me, like my entire life and identity was that of a Lego builder. So I was that kid that never outgrew his childhood hobby of playing with, you know, the little plastic bricks. So, you know, here I was like 11, 12 years old, like entering middle school now, maybe high school. I can't even remember the dates. But I'm like, you know, during the day, I try to be this cool kid in class and in school, but I go home and I just like have all these, you know, crazy amounts of Legos poured out over the floor. To this day, like I still have 2 tons of Legos in my parents' basement, back home on the East Coast, which is insane.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you realize this, but when you're talking Legos, this goes beyond, like my nephew's into Legos, right? And you go in his room and he's got, you know, 3 really pretty intricate, huge Lego kits that he put together. This is a much higher level than that. You used to go to garage sales every Saturday morning. You get the whole family, your dad's driving to buy Legos, right? And then what was the story? You got like an organizing system, and then this is your first entrepreneurial.
This was my first. So I guess you could say this was my first business.
It was
12,
right?
13 years old. I had like a decent sized Lego collection, probably like, you know, maybe decent's a generous word, like you know, like 5 or 6 times more than the average kid. My brother and I, we started an eBay store.
Okay.
And we were like, you know, buying these Lego lots from garage sales, piecing out all the individual bricks, rebuilding old sets, and then selling it for like a massive, you know, return on investment. So that was basically the first, you know, inkling of a business, right?
Yeah.
But that translated into communities. So what we realized is we started like getting connected to some people on these like really esoteric internet forums where other folks were basically orchestrating the same type.
I mean, we're talking hardcore Lego nerds.
Hardcore Lego reselling nerds. Right?
Yeah.
We basically discovered this whole community, and it wasn't even that many folks. It was like maybe 80, 90 people. And we're like, wow, these are our people, man. Like, you know, we've all figured something out. Like, we're all going to get rich, you know?
Yeah.
So we started getting more deeply embedded in this community. And then we discovered there was actually like a bigger world of community, Lego community builders. So that not only were there people reselling like we were, but then there were also people on like the buying and building end of the Lego community.
Okay.
So people basically, when we went and sell these sets online, like who was buying them? It wasn't other kids. It was actually like a huge group of adults. So come to find out, like 10% of Lego sales, and this is like a multi, you know, billion-dollar company, over like 10% of Lego sales comes from adults. And it's not adults buying Legos for like their kids.
Yeah.
It's adults buying Legos for themselves so that they can build these like massive, elaborate creations.
Okay.
So we got really embedded into that community as well, because we're like, okay, wow, like not only can like we get together with people that are, you know, selling Legos and making money, but we can also like start learning the best, I guess, like best practice for how to build these massive, elaborate creations from like hundreds of thousands of other adults, right? And they call these people adult fans of Legos. So going back to this idea of community building and identity, like anytime you can attach a label, to a community, so these people call themselves AFOLs, adult fans of Legos.
No, are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it goes really far.
Wow. So I was interested in your story too. So you got the Lego thing going on, right? You go to school, you want to be popular. I mean, who doesn't want to be popular in middle school, right? Everybody wants to, okay? But then there's another side of you that comes home and plays Legos for 4 to 6 hours every day.
Yeah.
The cool kids aren't doing that, right? So did you feel, I read somewhere that you almost kind of tried to reverse engineer how to be cool in middle school. First, is that true? And second of all, if so, who thinks like that?
Yeah, maybe a psychopath. I mean, yeah, but you have to be a bit psychopathic to have, like 1.8 tons of Legos in mom and dad's basement and take over their entire garage and, recruit 12 neighborhood kids to come and like sort things for you. One of the craziest parts about that story was we posted this ad on Craigslist, me and my brother, to try to like hire some local neighborhood hands to help us with like the Lego sorting operation. Because again, what we do is we'd buy these big lots from garage sales, and then we'd have to like sit there and painstakingly sort out all the individual bricks in order to resell them later. And that was a tough job for 2 people. So we started recruiting all these neighborhood kids. But one time we posted an ad on Craigslist, and we specifically said, for whatever dumb reason, we're like, we want a 13-year-old person. Okay. So somehow like the police like saw this ad and thought that we were like trying to child traffic, so they set up this like sting operation where they sent us pictures of like some like 12-year-old kid, and they're like, is this kid gonna be good for your Lego operation? Like,
is he cute enough?
Like, is he cute enough? Like, here's his name. Like, what do you think? Assuming that we were like some sort of, pedophile, like crazy person, when in reality we were just like 2, 13, 14-year-old kids, like trying to get some help with our Legos. So yeah.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah. To this day, my brother's phone number is probably still in some FBI database somewhere.
So did you find, because I was always thinking, right, you're living in 2 worlds basically, right? You're kind of doing your thing and, trying to probably date the popular girl and become popular yourself in middle school, which we all try to do. But then you've got this other side of you that's kind of, you keep quiet because who wants to advertise their, way into Legos more than, hey, I'm kind of a Lego nerd too. Did you find yourself feeling more comfortable in your own skin? I think I know the answer to this. When you're hanging out with those Lego heads, whether you're on an internet forum with them or you're meeting in person or you're talking to somebody at a garage sale who's way into Legos, do you feel more like yourself there and kind of like a phony version of yourself that you're putting out when you go to school in the morning?
100%. And anytime like you're, that misaligned and you have like that cognitive dissonance, it creates like a huge amount of internal strife and stress, whether you realize it or not. And unfortunately, like I felt like I was sort of living that dual life for probably the first 3/4 of my time on this planet. I'm only 28. So it wasn't up until honestly 21 years old when I discovered another tribe of people. So I guess a different community, you could say, that really made me feel like I was getting closer to that level of alignment.
And was this data scientist?
Yes, exactly. So
we'll take a step back real quick. You go to college, you're a smart kid, right? You come out, you get a job at JP Morgan. Now, for you who don't know this, I'm from New Jersey, so I know these guys. To work as an investment banker, you make a load of money, right? And they give those jobs to Ivy League grads, and very smart people get those jobs, right? So you're obviously a smart guy. You get the job. It's a clear path to wealth, and you hate it. Is that correct?
Yeah. Basically, the third day on the job, we used Microsoft Outlook for our emailing, and it was like, first off, that sucks. Like,
I used it for years.
Yeah, so that's when I realized, I was like, oh, they don't have Gmail. Okay, like this job's gonna suck. But I did learn a lot, but at the same time, like probably it was day 3 or 4. First week I was there, I basically took a look around. And I was like, this is not me. So I used Microsoft Outlook to send an email to myself a year from that date. And I was like, if I'm still here, quit tomorrow, basically, or something to that effect. Because you can schedule emails in Outlook. That's about the only good feature of the email product. So that's what I did. And the kind of community that I started to entrench myself in actually wasn't, the other data scientists or, quantitative investors and such at JP Morgan. Rather, it was friends outside of work.
Okay.
So I started getting together on Tuesday nights after work in coffee shops. Like we'd meet up in a Starbucks with other people that, weirdly enough, I met on Craigslist. So you can notice a pattern here. I became very good at like, leveraging that platform to meet interesting people or to
when you placed this ad, the police didn't show up.
Exactly.
You weren't looking for a 13-year-old boy.
No, exactly. No, I was looking for like a nerdy counterpart that wanted to basically like read scientific white papers with me, about neural networks. To build a community, it only really starts with one or two, right? Like you just need like a small core nucleus, and from there things can build, and that's basically exactly what happened. So the first week it was just us two in a coffee shop, in Brooklyn at Starbucks, reading white papers, nerding out. The next week, like started texting some other friends. He hit up a few people, and it's 4. The week after that, it's like 12. Then the week after that, we start a group text. And then, you could imagine how this type of thing snowballs. And we were really entering the industry at this very interesting time. This was maybe 2016.
Okay.
Where, it's not like today where we have like Chat GPT, which I'm sure all of us have seen, right? You can type in a prompt and it writes you like a whole college essay. That stuff didn't exist yet. So the field was a little bit more nascent, but it was like just catching the beginning of a hype wave, right? So Harvard Business Review, like a year before, had posted this article that went really viral that said, data scientist is going to be the sexiest job of the 21st century. So more and more like talent and capital and excitement was jumping headfirst into this field. And here we were like bringing together a community and a network of people that were all interested in making each other better, learning about the cutting edge of what's happening, getting better at the math, and just generally connecting. So,
well, pause on that real quick.
Yeah.
Why you? What do you have that obviously you've got some kind of skill set at this, whether, like I said, during the intro, whether it's Legos or data scientists or whatever, you've got some innate ability to connect that. A lot of people would just stop, hey, I met a buddy the first week, and that's that. Like, I got my friend, and we'll look at white papers and look at whatever kind of math you're talking about, and life is good, right? You see a bigger picture and go, well, if there's 2 of us, there probably could be more. What if we got 2 more? Do you just view the world differently? How come other people struggle with community building so much, whether it's brands or personal?
Yeah, for me, I just get so excited and passionate about certain things that like it's like a cup that's overflowing 10x over, and I'm like, I need to get other cups to like, I need to get other people involved to like, share this excitement, with me, or else like it'd probably kill me. So I really think that's honestly the secret is, again, in order to build a successful community, like you have to tap into people's sense of deep passion, identity, and like, truly what they're all about at their core as a human being. And for me, like, originally that was Legos. Then it became like, the nerdier side of life. Well, I guess Legos is still nerdy, but it became, data science and machine learning and this like really heavy engineering stuff. And I'm like, gosh, I just love this so much. Like I want to share it with other people. And like, I think other people should love it this much. And just me sort of expressing that, I think it becomes magnetic in a sense, right? And people are drawn to it. And then the reality is that once you get like a dozen or so folks to sort of seed a community or a movement, or like all have the same idea planted in their heads, then it just becomes contagious, right? Yeah. It's just like COVID. When you get in a room as a house party of 12 people and everyone's infected, they go out into the world, next 100,000 people are infected, right? It's just how these the exponential math works.
Do you think that, because I'm looking at you and go, okay, that's a really great skill set to have. I can tell you're super passionate about this. I'm guessing you're probably a pretty good leader or CEO or president or whatever your role is. And you're probably pretty good at getting funding too, because you're so passionate, and it's all about the transfer of excitement, right? That's what sales is basically, right? It's a transfer of excitement from one person to the other. And it sounds like you've got that down. Do you think that's really helped you to attract employees or investors, or just lead people or get them passionate about something, or try to see your vision? Do you think that's key to everything you've kind of built and are building?
Well, I'm sure everyone's listening has heard the adage that like everything in life is sales in a sense, right? Yeah. Like when you're making friends with someone, it's like, you're selling your idea of friendship, or a romantic partner, you're selling your fitness for, right, being a good mate to them. Same thing with fundraising, business, like everything in life is kind of salesy at the end of the day. But and I agree with that, but I also think everything in life at the end of the day is community, right? Like just think about how we evolved as a species. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, it was just, tribes of like, a few dozen people, or maybe a few hundred around the fire, and we'd travel in these sort of nomadic groups. Those groups turned into like little villages and towns, and eventually societies, and we get industrialization. So it's core to us, who we are, what we're all about. and like we evolved effectively to, really resonate with people in our community and in our tribe. So community is just core to our social DNA.
Yeah,
in effect.
We all want to be a part of something.
We all want to be a part of something, right? So the best companies, they're not selling products. They're making you feel like you're buying into a community, and again, adopting an identity. The best
Harley Davidson just pops into my head when you say that, because I'm not a motorcycle guy, but when I think of Harley Davidson, I think of a very specific customer. I think of a very specific image. And it's not even necessarily the motorcycle. It's kind of like the lifestyle,
Right.
Maybe it's leather jackets or whatever they're into.
Exactly.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's all the things, right? And the best leaders, they're not necessarily like, yes, they're setting a direction, but at the end of the day, like they're building, a community, right? Your team is a community, right? Your family is a community. Like if you want to be a great father or great mother, like you are leading like a little community in a sense, like your friend group is a community. So I see, to hammer everything to nail, like to me, I see everything as sort of, an opportunity to build community and deeper bonds with people. So, perhaps that's been my, I guess, superpower as a leader in a business, builder, is that I don't, obviously you need to create value if you want to build something that's, big and enduring. But for me, it's more like, how do we kind of harness the energy of these people and get them all, thinking on the same page and, buying into the same identity and resonating with the same sort of like community principles.
So what are people getting wrong? People, individuals, and brands. What you're saying makes sense, right? We all want to belong. And if I'm a brand, I want to build a community, right? Because they're going to be diehards. They're going to be my ride or die. They're going to buy whatever the rest of the sales cycle is like. They're going to be my core people. So I want a community there. If I'm into Legos, I want to talk to other people about Legos. Like, what are people and brands getting wrong? Like, it seems pretty obvious, what you're laying down. Why isn't everyone successful at this?
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's tremendously difficult, to build a community. Like, it's easy to say, we are a community, or we have a community, or our Instagram following, or our TikTok following is a community. But it's not. It doesn't work like that. The reality is, you can define a community, not as like a one-to-many relationship like a follower or an audience. It's many-to-many connections, right? And it's all about the density of those connections. So like the frequency and the quality of those connections and interactions. And like just mathematically, like I think about all these things in that lens. It's just really hard to build and really hard to do. So yeah, it's mathematically challenging.
Sure.
In a way.
So you've got that email to yourself at JP Morgan. I read you get $5,000, you want to get into startups, and then you just quit your job. Yeah. But I wasn't clear on, so what was the plan? What startup? Did you have one in place?
Yeah.
Did you have a co-founder? Like, what was the idea? So walk me through that. You want to quit JP Morgan, you want to get into startups. Now what?
So surprise, the startup was all about community.
Shocked.
Yeah. So, I'd been building communities for sort of a decade, had like a really good idea of just how hard it is, all the different little pain points and challenges. So I met a guy outside of work, and he had come from the community building world as well. So he used to run like one of the world's biggest Minecraft communities.
Oh, wow, okay.
Came from the video game community world, and I came from like the Lego community building world, the data science world. So we basically decided to put our heads together, and we're like, we want to build a product that can help community builders everywhere.
Okay.
That was the birth of the company. It was going to be a software product. So the idea was we just wanted to make it the one-liner was we wanted to just make it super easy for community builders to do their jobs better, effectively. Okay. And I don't know if anyone listening is familiar with like Salesforce or like CRM software.
I've been in sales my whole life.
Okay, there you go.
Salesforce,
there you go.
CRM.
Yeah, exactly. So we basically wanted to build the Salesforce for communities.
Huh.
So for community teams at big companies, we're like, we want to give you this system, this database of all the records of all the members of your community, how they're interacting and engaging with you, so that you can take the best types of actions to reach your goals as a community builder. So
oh, cool. Okay.
That was the idea.
So how did you get funding, and how did you quit your job? Was there a long-term plan? Or
there was no long-term plan, and I genuinely quit my job way too early.
Yeah. Okay.
So we got our first like $5,000 customer contract.
Okay.
And we thought, wow, this is great. We're going to go get the next 500 of these. Like,
yeah,
this is a rocket ship. We're really onto something. So we quit our jobs, and then within the first 2 weeks, like the customer pulled out or something, and like it became a complete failure, and we had no funding, no savings, no money. I had like just given up the lease to my apartment, and here I was now, going from like, 21-year-old hotshot, like, on the Wall Street world, like taking things by storm. I was like an entrepreneur at the bank, like, really sort of making this reputation for myself, to down here with, nothing but like an idea, some scraps of paper, no customers, and like no idea of what's next and no apartment. So, it was a big reality check.
So how do you, does self-doubt creep in? I mean, how do you deal with, you're sleeping on a couch now at a buddy's place. I've been there, and that's not a fun place to be. And the negative thoughts start coming. The inner critic sinks its teeth into you. How'd you fight that? How did you, what was the next step? How did you stay positive during that time?
So I've had two very dark periods in my life.
Mm-hmm.
This was the darkest period psychologically. The second was a dark period physically, which we can talk about.
Okay.
And I will say going through that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Why?
Because when you go through something as tough as, putting it all out on the line, just destroying your financial stability, right? Destroying your mental stability and entering into a world where you're the outsider, everything's uncertain, you have no idea what you're doing. It is like the ultimate forcing function, right?
What do you mean?
As in, you have no choice. You're in a lifeboat in the middle of the ocean.
You're fighting for your
without
life,
a paddle,
Yep.
fighting for your life. It's like that the Christopher Nolan Batman film where Batman gets stuck in that cave and Bane puts him there and he has to fight his way out to get back to Gotham to save the world. That's basically how I felt. I felt like I was in that black hole, where no one was looking out for me, and you just have to fight and fight and fight and try and try and try. And I had never been through anything like that in my life. So, being homeless in New York, starving entrepreneur, trying to scrap together and make things work for 9 months with no customers, no funding. It was grueling, but there was light at the end of the tunnel because we ended up, eventually.
During all this dark period, you're still working on the dream of the startup, still going.
Exactly.
You're not going, I need a job at another investment bank and I'll figure this stuff out later. You're going, I'm chasing the dream.
Yeah, you can't go back, right?
Burn the bridge.
Burnt the bridge.
I'm not going backwards.
You can't go back.
Wow.
Only forward. And sometimes you got to take, 2 steps back to take 10 steps forward. So.
Well, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people, and I've been homeless. I've lived in hotels. I've slept on couches for a long period of time for other reasons, right? Drugs and alcohol for other reasons, right? But a lot of people can't, get through that. I think most people in your situation would go, this, if I can go make a couple $100,000 over here tomorrow, I'm going to go do that, the startup and stuff, forget it. It didn't work. I think don't you agree? You have to be almost, I interviewed somebody else that they said, you almost have to be self-delusional.
Yeah.
Because no one in the right mind, there's no evidence. You're a math guy, right? There's no evidence. There's no proof. There's no data backing this up that this thing's going to work, but you just somehow ignore every reality basically.
Exactly.
And go, I'm just going to do that. Do you think you need to be a little nutty and have that mindset to be a successful entrepreneur or startup founder?
Absolutely. You have to be out of your mind. I mean, all the math tells you no, all the math tells you to do something else. And you just have to fight through. So, but things ended up working out,
So how'd you get out of it?
So we got our first angel investor.
Okay.
$10,000. So finally we could afford to pay ourselves, a little bit, and we could stop exhausting friends' couches. So we got the first angel investor, and we still weren't finding our footing with the software product. So we decided to take a huge step back and do what we do best, which is build community. So here we were trying to build a software product to sell to, heads of community at all these big companies like Google, Amazon, and such. And we're like, why are we trying to sell them software? Why don't we just sell them community? So we got this idea to basically build a community for our target customer and our target audience. It's very meta, right? Very meta to build a community for community people.
Wait, so I'm confused. Say I'm brand A.
Yeah.
And my demo is 25 to 35-year-old, mostly female people, right?
Yeah.
So I just go to you and go, build me a community for my jeans brand. Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's more like, you are the head of community at that jeans brand company.
Okay.
And you say hey, I want to learn from the community builder over at Banana Republic, or I want to learn from the community builder at Google, or I want to learn from the head of community at Notion, or all these other companies. So we basically aggregated the supply of all of these heads of community and these community managers at companies and put them all in a group chat, put them all on a newsletter. We got them talking to one another. We got them consuming best practices and content.
But how does that make money?
Well, that's the thing.
if I'm the angel investor, I go, that's great, but when are the checks coming?
So this is the new way to build companies.
Okay.
You don't build product first and try to figure out the marketing later. You build community first, and then the product takes care of itself.
Say that again.
Community before product.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we did. Before we touched a line of code on the software product, we had hundreds of people that could conceivably be future customers of whatever product we built, all talking in this group chat, all consuming content, all making each other better, all buying into this idea that like they are community builders.
Mm-hmm. And all for free.
All for free.
Yeah. I interviewed this guy, Ben Soffer. He was a he's an Instagram guy, his tag, boy with no job. Anyway, he founded this company, Spritz Society. It's like a, alcohol, carbonated brand. I don't know. In a can. I don't know what it is. But anyway, he had a big following and he said the same thing. He's like, I sent thousands of direct messages on Instagram to my core followers and asked them everything. Are you interested in this? What flavors do you like? What do you drink? All that stuff. He goes, building that community, which I kind of already did, but then going a step further and building a community around this product that's going to come out eventually. He goes, that was the key to success. And that's exactly what you did. So it seems like that's the way to go.
Absolutely. And that's sort of the philosophy I've, applied to basically everything throughout my life since.
Yeah. So how do you make money now? So you got the guy from Google and Banana Republic talking. Cool. That's great. Made some great connections. When does the money come in?
So because we had hundreds of these people in this group chat, we were all talking on Slack. We had one of the best windows into their minds, right? So we saw the pain points that they were talking about every single day. Like we saw what was hard for them. So it became naturally then very easy for us to start to build, code and software that could like automate a lot of their pain points and make parts of their lives easier. So that's when we started putting the puzzle pieces together and realized like, okay, there's a big software product that we could build here that basically solves a universal pain point for every single head of community at all these companies. And we were right. So we put together like a very basic version of the product, started getting some user feedback on it. The letters of intent from bigger companies started rolling in. We started signing deals. Investors started breathing down our necks. And all was going really well. And then the pandemic hit. And we were like, okay, like this is going to like fundamentally upend, the business climate. It's going to be way harder to fundraise, like a lot of economic uncertainty. So we were scared. But then the opposite thing happened. The size of our market actually 10,000x virtually overnight because
everyone needs community.
What we realized is every company was like, wow, we were spending millions of dollars on in-person marketing, on like all these different types of, effectively sales and marketing channels that now were useless in a world where everyone's remote and stuck behind their computer. So like we need digital community now more than ever. So more and more companies started shifting their budgets towards this strategic priority. And next thing we know, our customer base is really, really exploding.
Wow. Pause on that real quick. So back to the sleeping on the couch days, right? You, I think, had a chip on your shoulder because I read that it was almost kind of a joke amongst maybe your old coworkers and maybe some friends that, where is he tonight? Oh, I don't know. He's working on a startup stuff. Who knows? I don't know. He quit his job. Like, I don't know. He's working on this thing. Did that hit you hard? And did you use that as a motivational tool to go, when you're on your couch, you go, I'm not letting them win. I'm not going back to investment banking or whatever I was doing. I'm going to show them. Was that kind of a driving force and motivation for you?
So ego is a bit of a weird word, right? It has a certain, dirty connotation to it. And I've probably done, enough coaching, mentorship, endured hard shit, psychedelics, like you name it, right? To learn.
Shout out psychedelics.
Shout out psychedelics. I might be microdosed right now. No. To get an understanding of really like how my subconscious drives me, kind of how my own ego works and just be very conscious and, able to calibrate my emotions and such. But at the time, I'd say my ego was a bit unbridled, unrefined. But again, it doesn't have to be a bad thing because in my case, I use this as a positive driver. So the story that you're referencing was, gosh, this is probably when I was 22, just finishing up my time at JP Morgan. We were working, basically I was working, 10, 12 hour days at the desk. And then I'd come home and work another 4 or 5 hours at night before, getting very little sleep. And there was one Friday night where I'm in my bedroom just hacking away. And I hear all my friends in the living room having a good time, throwing back some beers. And they go I hear them go where's Jacob? Where's Peters? Like, what's he up to? And I'm Another one like makes a joke like, oh, he's probably working on startup stuff. You know, and
Like kind of like a dig.
yeah, kind of like a dig. Exactly. And then another one goes like, he makes this like, you know, sneaky little comment. He goes, psh, like, what if Peters is more successful than all of us someday? Like, you know, just, and I, those words just became like seared into my brain. So on all the tough nights, you know, on all the, you know, sleepless, like, you know, nights sleeping on couches, like those words would just like, you know, bubble back up because my ego was like, don't forget this. Don't forget that this is, you know, what they're going to think. And it really drove me. And I think, you know, I sort of was able to use this as like a positive, healthy force to channel through. But the reality is I don't know how sustainable that energy source is, right? It can get you through like some short-term hard times, and it can maybe get you to
is not healthy.
Exactly. And get you to a certain level of success. But like, you know, at a certain point, you need to find a more sustainable energy source. And for me, I found that just being like able to lean into my passions.
I completely agree. And I had the same thing going too. I had a corporate boring sales job, and I started to kind of do this again, totally delusional, no media background, no journalism, no nothing. And I just like, I can do that. Why couldn't I? You know, and coworkers and my boss found out about it. I kept it very quiet, and I found out they're all laughing behind my back. And it just hit me so hard. At first, it like kind of depressed me. And then I kind of was like, them. They don't see it. I do. Yeah. They're wrong, right? And then it finally happened about 2 months ago. I won't say his name, but I saw my old boss on Instagram as trying to be like a business influencer. And I started cracking up, and I go, see, you fucker, I was right. I was right. You were laughing, but you're right. That it fuels it, but it's almost like a fire that's burning too bright in my experience, where, you know, a strong fire is good if you're really cold. You know, it can really get you warm quick, but it burns out quick, right? It takes a lot of energy to sustain that flame. And I think you're right. I think kind of leaning in your passions, which is almost a positive thing. It is a positive thing, I think. Whatever your passion is, like, I don't know what your beliefs are and stuff, but there's a reason we're all here. And I think it's to find your passion and whatever your superpower is and fucking go running.
So things at the company are really rocket shipping. We end up becoming one of the fastest growing software products of 2020 in Silicon Valley. Yeah. 0 to $500 million in just a few years.
Now, what does that do for your pocketbook personally?
I'll neither confirm nor deny.
Well, you're better off than you were on the couch. Let's say that, right?
Yeah.
How good did that feel? Could you take a deep breath and go, see, it was worth it?
So like when it was time to move on from the company, I thought, okay, you know, the bank account looks a little different, and you know,
I can imagine.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a sabbatical.
Okay.
Right. I wanted some like real deep time off. You know,
how old are you at the time?
25.
Oh
so yeah, 25 and a half. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna take sabbatical. You know, just reset my life a little bit. Because again, we talk about this idea of energy, right? Like energy management is everything. And if like your energy source is your ego, like you can burn out, you can be a shooting star that, you know. So that's what I thought I wanted. But on day 3 of my sabbatical, I accidentally started a new company. so I was on Twitter and I see this guy tweeting that he's putting together a house in Mexico with 15 other entrepreneurs, all kind of people like, you know, at my level that were doing interesting things.
Okay.
To just go live and work during the pandemic. So I was like, heck yeah, that sounds awesome. Like I've never been to Mexico. Like, you know, I want to live in a big mansion with, with 15 other creative people. Like let's go do it. So I just like aped into this experience basically on a complete whim.
Was this at the time Hype House and all the TikTok, because I used to cover all those. Was this when they were all popping up and blowing up too?
Exactly. So basically the idea was like, you know, this guy was putting together almost like what you call like a hype house for the tech industry. Yeah. Right? So it was a hype house for nerds.
I've been to the hype house. I know all those guys.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a hype house for nerds. And here we were, you know, all getting together in Mexico. We put up a Twitter account. We call it Launch House. So again, as like a total meme on like funny. The idea of the hype house, because we're all launching tech products under this one roof, right? It's the whole idea of the hacker house, right? Like the hacker house is like a concept as old as Silicon Valley itself. Yeah. You know, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, all these things were basically like effectively incubated in garages in Palo Alto, you know, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Like it's a tried and true way to have to create magic. And here we were in Mexico doing the same thing, except there was a new component, which was we were going viral on social media.
Now, could you imagine that? It's almost like you're the opposite of a Bryce Hall, right?
Yeah,
You don't have great abs. You know what I mean? The hot girls aren't coming over every day, right? So did you ever expect, it was almost kind of like a spoof, like a joke, like
total
no
spoof.
one's going to follow us.
Yeah,
Why would anyone follow us, right?
Exactly. No one's going to follow us, but things went viral really fast.
That's awesome.
TV producers started reaching out. So we ended up going through like all the dialogues with Netflix. We flew a camera crew, like just like what's recording this podcast, down to Mexico. We recorded a whole sizzle reel. We thought.
So now you're content creators.
Exactly. So now
right?
I thought,
That's
okay,
funny.
damn, like I'm gonna go from like tech bro to TV show producer. Like, Silicon Valley to Wall Street to Silicon Valley to Hollywood. Like, let's go. We tried that out. We had a lot of fun doing it, but the ultimate realization was that the kind of feedback we started getting from the studios once we pitched the sizzle around was that this is really cool, but we don't want to film a show where like people are on their computers 90% of the time. And, like,
I know, yeah.
They wanted us to like
need storylines.
Exactly. They wanted us to incite all this like artificial drama.
Yeah, that's what people want.
Exactly. That's what the people want. But like the reality is, how can you build a company, right? If like things are just artificially dramatic every day. And we realized the people that were best like made for TV were not necessarily overlapping with like the best hackers and startup founders.
Or people. You watch the reality shows we watch. I've got a wife. We watch all these. They're terrible people.
Yeah.
The ones we love to watch, they've got the most awful people you could imagine on it, and yet we're there every week.
Yep.
The worst thing to watch is, when a character comes on and they're like well-adjusted and happy and good people and in a good relationship and have great kids and stuff. They're like, get her off the show immediately, right?
Exactly.
She's boring.
It doesn't resonate. So that was the learning. So we nixed the reality show concept.
Okay.
But we still decided to follow our Hollywood ambitions. So we got the idea to rent Paris Hilton's old mansion in Beverly Hills, California, move the operation from Mexico back to the
States.
Crew? New, half and half. So half the same crew, half the new crew. We recruited on Twitter and got like 20 of the smartest people, in the industry, like all like, mid-20s to come in, fly to LA, live in this like massive 15,000 square foot mansion that Paris Hilton had just given up the lease on, in January of 2021. So again, like height of the pandemic.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what was the plan?
The plan was to make Launch House one of the biggest brand names in the tech industry.
Okay. Now, what's the business? Because I wasn't sure. I'm like, okay, that's cool and all, but like, how do you make money? Like, are you the funder and you own a little piece of these, or like, how does it all work?
Yeah. So we basically got the idea to mash up something like a startup incubator like Y Combinator, which is like the top startup accelerator for early stage companies, with something like a Stanford dorm room, right? Where people are living and working. Like, there's a reason why so many great companies, come out of places like Stanford dorms, it's because like you have this like high density of really smart people living together, right? So living is sort of like this ultimate form of community, right? Think about it. Like, you see these folks every day, like you're eating, sleeping, breathing with them. Like it's just, again, it all comes back to the math. You mathematically have like 10x more interactions with them, and they're much deeper, right? Because you see them at all hours of the day. It's not just, you're clocking in for work from 9 to 5. It's like, no, I'm seeing this person from the second I'm brushing my teeth to like the second I'm like, going to bed at 1 a.m. So we basically built this like really tight knit community of people, and we combined it with, some of the learnings from startup accelerators. So we were effectively like helping these companies get off the ground, incubating them, and then ultimately like investing in kind of like the top few that would come through the program.
So the people you brought to the house had companies you thought could go somewhere.
Exactly.
that you were interested in?
So we had a big vetting process. We had lots of cool companies come through the first few months. One of the early wins was this company called Wombo, which was building like an AI app. They actually have 2 apps, both hit #1 in the App Store. You can like take a picture of your face and it turns into this singing video. They had another one called Dream, where like you could type in some words and it would AI generate some artwork. Hundreds of millions of downloads. I mean, they were printing cash every single day. Like, so definitely like it was really exciting to see some like early wins come out of the house.
So is this still going on?
Yeah, so Launch House is still going. Yeah,
it's still in the same house in Paris's old house?
No, we moved houses now. We have expanded to New York. Like, we're looking to expand to San Francisco. So yeah, the company's moving along. We've helped get like 700 companies off the ground.
Wow.
In the past 2 years.
700?
700.
What's the average investment? I mean, what's the cost to get, an app company off the ground, or,
Yeah.
What does it cost?
It takes a few hundred. It takes a few $100,000
for each one.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is a significant investment on all these.
Yeah. We weren't investing in all of them. Some of them came in with existing investors, but again, we were kind of helping nurture these startups. So across, these 700, like probably 1.5 to $2 billion of total private market cap was created. So yeah.
Wow. Good Lord. So is that what your focus is now? Is that?
So, I thought I was going to be involved in Launch House for the rest of my life. Here I was like this teenager that was building communities, learning about community, then starting software products to help enable other community managers. And now I'm like, okay, I get to jump back in the community building world and like build for like this persona of people that I really resonate with, other entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Like I was basically building the community that I'd always wished I had to support me when I was building the first company.
How cool is that?
It's so cool. But disaster struck.
What do you mean?
March 2021. We're maybe 4 months into the Launch House business, and I get the COVID vaccine.
Okay.
Next thing I know, I'm in a hospital bed being told, sir, you're 26 years old and having a heart attack.
From the vaccine?
Well, here's the thing.
Who gets a heart attack at 26 if you're not doing cocaine or something?
Yeah, exactly. And, I don't do cocaine. I'm like, barely drink. I'm a pretty sober guy. So,
so how do you have a heart attack at 26?
The math doesn't add up. And look, it's impossible to know the 100% causation, but, just putting two and two together.
Sure.
Something funky happened with, the spike protein and the mRNA, and it just like overloaded my immune system. So not only did I have to deal with this heart issue, I was formally diagnosed with like myocarditis, heart inflammation, effectively in the hospital for 3 weeks.
So like, what does that mean? You can't do intense exercise.
Yeah,
you can't drink caffeine.
Do anything. Like
nothing that's going to raise your heart.
Exactly. They like put me on all these drugs to calm down the inflammation. And then I get hit with the second blow, which is I get diagnosed with sudden onset Crohn's disease.
Good Lord. At 26?
26. And for those who aren't familiar, Crohn's disease is basically an autoimmune disorder where like your own body attacks your organs, specifically your stomach. So my immune system thought that like my stomach, which is like obviously one of our most important organs, we eat 3 times a day, 2,500 calories, like you need that shit. It thinks it's a foreign invader, and it starts attacking it as if it's like a cancer cell or as if it's like some sort of bacterial infection. And that really, really knocked me on my ass.
It's almost like a joke from God or something. It's like, here you go. I mean, this guy's got it. I'm looking at you now and you go, okay, he's 25. He's got, a couple companies under his belt. He's got millions of dollars, right? This is the dream of everyone, right? You're still young enough where you can really enjoy it and really ball out and have some fun. And you get hit with these two things at the same time. How did you deal with, like, were you resentful or angry or, I'd be pissed off.
Well, so I alluded to this, right? Like going through the homeless period and like scrapping to get the first company off the ground, like psychologically, probably one of the most challenging periods of my life. This health thing was physically the most challenging. And in a twisted sort of way, like, I basically, I wouldn't have looked upon it so psychologically favorably if I hadn't gone through the other dark time, right? So I basically realized, okay, like I've been through some, like I got to now apply the learnings and that new lens, through which I view the world to this health scenario and just like choose positivity. Like be
that's a
relentlessly
very
positive.
mature way of looking at things that I wouldn't have been, that evolved at 25 or 26. I don't think most people would. I think people would be pissed off. Why me? Why now? This, Yeah. And you just took a kind of Zen approach to this whole thing?
For the most part. I also decided to be, pretty open and vulnerable about it. So this is one of the first times I've maybe talked a bit more publicly about it. But what I did when I was stuck in that hospital bed, for months straight was I posted a few TikToks and some tweet threads that went really viral.
Okay.
So like
saying about what? About what you're going through?
About what I was going through. So like 5 to 10 million impressions across all these different posts. Just sharing my journey with the vaccine. And the craziest part of all of it was, this like army of people came after me saying that like I was spreading, vax misinformation and like, killing grandmas. And I'm like, look, like, okay. Yeah. Okay. First of all, this is my real life lived experience. Like, you.
Yeah.
The science now is coming out, to support that, like, maybe potentially there is a higher risk for young, healthy men getting this vaccine than there is a reward because look, most statistically you're not going to die from COVID. But if you're more statistically likely to have heart issues, then, what's the risk calculus here, right? And coming from obviously like my mathematical background, it just doesn't make sense to me. So anyway, that sort of, made all my posts go really viral. And that was what was negative about it. But the positive side was it also introduced a lot of inbound serendipity, because people from all corners of the planet, like as far off as like South Korea and Australia, were like sending me different treatments and tips and intros to doctors. And like, I got connected to like the head of the department at like the medical department at Yale and Brown University and all these crazy places, Cleveland Clinic, to try and help me.
So pause.
Yeah.
So you're actually building a Crohn's disease community?
Effectively.
I mean, from your hospital bed?
Yeah.
What is wrong? I mean, you can't escape community.
Yeah. So because I was like, I want to cure myself, and the doctors were telling me, no, you have to take these drugs for the rest of your life.
Okay.
We have to like, remove like half of your intestines and all this crazy stuff. And I was like, I reject that. Like I want to figure out a way to cure this, as naturally as possible. And unfortunately, even with all that community building and all the, research, here I was like in my hospital reading white papers of like different, science experiments I wanted to run, and the doctors were like, no, we can't do that. Which is really unfortunate, but that's a whole nother story of like, how the medical system is very risk averse, and consensus. And, even if the literature is 10 years ahead of the current practice, they're still going to go with the current practice. So I ended up losing the battle, but I won the war.
Okay. You lost the battle by not being able to do those experimental tests?
Yeah. So unfortunately, I had to get 3 different organs removed. So I have no lower intestine to rectum. It's completely removed.
How does that affect your life? I'm not a medical guy. Does that affect your day-to-day life?
The biggest negative is that it's really hard to stay hydrated.
Oh,
because your colon, your large intestine, actually regulates your electrolyte production.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I have to just drink like a ton of water.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
A lot of electrolyte powder, a lot of coconut water.
So you come out of that, and how long were you in the hospital for?
At one point I was there for like 60 days straight.
Okay.
But on and off, probably a third of the year.
So it took about 100 days or so to get healthy again, where you could get out of there and live like a semi-normal life?
Yeah, but the thing is, even when I got out of the hospital...
But you still have the heart to deal with,
Yeah,
right?
When I got out of the hospital, they were still like, you have to take all these drugs, and like... I still had some blood levels that were off, and they were like, you just got to deal with this. And I'm like, this is crazy.
So what happened to work during all this? Now, are you still, involved in the incubator and the house and all that? Or are you, hey, I can't deal with any of that. I got to get myself right first. So I'll let that, I can't deal with the stress.
Yeah.
I've got a heart thing too.
Yeah.
I can't deal with any of that right now. I got to focus on me. What happened to the business?
So unfortunately, I had to make the tough decision to take a big step back. And for a while, I was doing double duty. I was running all these experiments on myself, trying to stay healthy, stay low stress, while also like, keeping one hand in the business. And it just was not sustainable. So I'm still involved at an arm's length. I'm on the board of the company.
Okay.
We have a venture investment fund where we're still like investing in some of the best startups, and I'm a partner in that. But beyond that, it takes up very little time. So I've now moved on to effectively trying to combine 2 of my passions:
community
and health.
Okay.
Exactly. To push the world forward in a different way.
So what does that mean?
So I can't share too much yet because we're still in stealth. But effectively the idea is, something I've realized is that health is not just a one-off doctor's visit, or it's not a one-off supplement. It's actually a lifestyle, right? Health is it's not about one thing or one protocol or one magic bullet. It's about all the things, right?
People don't want to hear that.
People don't want to hear that.
People want the magic pill.
Yeah.
It's like, no, eat this many calories a day, watch your macros,
Yeah.
Avoid this, that. It is a whole, like you said, lifestyle.
Yeah. But the thing is,
but how do you get people away from the magic pill to that?
It's really tough. And I think the secret that not many companies have figured out yet is really leaning into this idea of community.
Okay.
So effectively what I want to do, for my next venture and for the rest of my life is building, a community and making caring about your health cool.
Isn't it cool? I think it's cool, but
cool.
I'm old, and what do I know? I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Don't most people think it's cool?
Yeah, it's.
I mean, the final result's cool.
The final result's cool.
Having
when
abs
you're doing
is cool.
it,
but when you were getting there a month ago, when you didn't have abs and your friends are eating cheeseburgers and you're not, that's not so cool.
Yeah, so it's hard, right?
Yeah,
it's really hard to do all the things to stick to your habits, and I fundamentally believe that like one of the best ways to get our society and our culture to have this like consciousness shift and to change and to be more health first and think holistically is to make health like an identity. again, going back to this idea that like the strongest communities are ones where like you have a strong sense of identity, like religions as an example.
Yeah.
They've been around for thousands of years. Why? It's because they tap into like our deepest sense of identity and who we are. It's like, it's why we're alive. It's our purpose. We live toward, try to live a good,
literally being part of something bigger than you.
Exactly. Being part of something bigger than you.
Yeah.
So I think health is this really interesting thing where it has the potential to be this new religion in a sense. Because if you think academically, like what is one of the reasons why like communities persist and endure is it's this idea of like shared struggle, right? Like there's a reason why people that go through like, fraternities or sororities in college and these pledging processes, they're like lifelong friends with their pledge mates and stuff.
Or army buddies.
Or army buddies.
War. Sure,
exactly.
They're friends for life.
Exactly. Or like the PayPal Mafia, or startup team or something. It's because if you go through hardship together with other people, it's going to form like really deep, incredible bonds and like this just like, insatiable sense of identity that persists for a very long time. And in health, what bigger struggle is there than our shared battle against our own mortality? So if you apply that to this idea of community, it's like health actually has kind of the perfect, building blocks to become like one of the strongest communities, of all time. So I think like health is effectively going to be this new religion. And I want to be, helping push the world forward in a meaningful way and getting people to change the way they think about their health.
Wow. I think that is a very noble thing and obviously smart. I just kind of what you're describing to me, it just makes me think of the popular fitness influencers, right? That's exactly what they do to a much smaller degree than what you're talking about. They focus on whether it's on diet or exercise or a vegetarian lifestyle, whatever their niche is, right? But isn't that kind of what they do is they build a community around, hey, I was Richard Simmons. I was fat. Now I'm thin and I'm full of energy and he's missing or something. I don't know if they found him or whatever, but that was his whole thing. Like, hey, I was fat too. This is how I did it. This is how you can too. And by the way, the person next to you is overweight too in the class. So they're going through the same thing you are. Is that kind of the whole vibe type thing, the struggle you're talking about?
Yeah. I mean, look, like, veganism, keto, like CrossFit, these things, they've already developed cult-like followings, right? Around like particular health niches. Same with like, different folks that champion weight loss and all that. But I think we need a new movement that, gets people to think about their health truly holistically, right? Like it's all the things, it's from like the second you wake up, you don't check your phone in the morning, you go out, you get your 15 minutes of sunlight, which activates your eyes. I learned recently that like our eyes are actually part of our brains, like when the fetus is developing it, like literally the eyes come out of the brain and it's like, it's all connected. So our eyes are literally our brains, so like you have to basically realize that your body is just like one beautiful integrated system and that every single conversation you have, every single, product in your environment or chemical you touch or product you use, like, all that stuff is going into your body. Every choice you make, every ounce of food you eat, like food is code, food is energy. Like we are what we eat. Like as soon as you start to like, take this almost hippie-esque approach, but it's not hippie-esque, it's science, right?
Yeah.
And understand that like, we are a product of our inputs. It makes you think differently. And I want to help. Like I go out on street corners and you just look around and you see, people that are putting things in their body and they just don't realize how bad it is for them. They have the texting neck, they have like, it's really quite sad that sick has become the new normal. And I was unfortunately like, a person who had to deal with that. And, I'd like to blame the vaccine, but a lot of it was probably stress and it, becomes this perfect storm. Like I was not taking care of myself very well, for my first two companies or even when I was working crazy hours on Wall Street. So
I would say the majority of startup founders or entrepreneurs are not taking care of themselves either.
Yeah, they're not. And it's sad because
it's not a priority.
It's not a priority, but the reality is like, startup founders are like, some of the biggest movers and shakers in society right now. And if they're not taking care of themselves, like, how are they going to be able to build, world-changing and impactful companies, right? It all trickles down in a sense, right? Like if you're not fully optimized, the best, like most holistic, version of yourself, like there's ways that that's going to, translate down into your product, into your decisions and how like, the technology you're building or the products you're building are going to affect, end users down the line.
Well, hold on real quick. So it's easy to say, right? And it's easy for me I could say this too, because I work for myself now, right? after this interview, I can go home and I do transcendental meditation. I can go meditate for 20 minutes, right? But I've had corporate jobs and stuff, or high stress kind of jobs. If I went to my boss and said, "Hey, boss, I need 20 minutes. I got to meditate and get my head right," they go, "Are you f***ing out of your mind? We have X, Y, and Z to do today. Worry about that when you go home, or even don't worry about that at all. Get the work done when you go home." Do you have any advice for the average person who has a regular job, who has limited resources, most people, to be able to take care of themselves when it's almost sometimes viewed as selfish? It's selfish. You're being lazy by meditating in the middle of the day while Johnny's working. How do you get over that? And how do you take care of yourself without looking lazy or selfish?
Yeah, well, there's two things. One component is you just have to have relentless and shameless advocacy, right?
What do you mean?
You have to advocate for yourself. So it's one thing if you start going off and meditating, in the conference room while Johnny's over there working, you don't really, but if you go to your boss and say, "Hey, look, I've done the research, I have the science, here's the white papers, here's the podcast clips, here's the quotes from people way smarter than me and look, here's how it's going to translate into better outcome and productivity for me and, better ROI for the business if I can get 1% more work and efficiency done." You can take all that available information and advocate for yourself and make a business case, right? You have to speak the language, of your bosses and of the company. So that's number one. Is you don't be afraid to do that. It might sound crazy and ridiculous, but I do stuff like that, and it works.
Well, maybe you're a little crazy.
Yeah, maybe I'm a little crazy, but you have to be. And then the second is, this is not going to be solved at a micro level by one person or one interaction. It's going to be solved at a macro level, societally and culturally, and that's basically what I seek to do with what I'm thinking about next in the health and community building space. Is can we get employers to think differently? Can we get society to wake up and realize that health needs to come first, and without health, there is not going to be any business. Without health, nothing else matters, right?
That's true.
Health is wealth.
If you don't have your health, literally nothing else matters.
Literally nothing else matters. There's that great quote, I think it's by Confucius, that says, a healthy man wants 1,000 things and a sick man only wants one.
Yep, 100%. I think that's a good note to end on. Why don't you give us one tip on what we can do to improve our health today? What is one thing we can all do today that we're not doing? Give us a small one. We're not changing our diets now. Give us. I mean, what's one thing we could do to improve our health?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing is when you get up in the morning, don't check your phone first thing, and go outside and get some sunlight for 15 minutes, and make that a daily practice. When you go outside, the sun actually it's basically coating your skin, to wake up, and it just sends all these amazing cascades of hormones and signals. And I'm not, a deep scientist, so I can't tell you
we know it's good for you.
We know it's good for you. We know it's good for you. And what it does is it doesn't, when you check your phone first thing and you stay in your dark room and it's just, you're sending the wrong types of hormones. You're sending a cascade of cortisol and stress, and you're, throwing your dopamine, all your brain chemicals out of whack. Versus if you wake up and you do what nature intended, and you keep yourself at ease and calm. And I think it just sets the tone for the entire rest of the day. It's also a win. If you can do that and stick to that routine, you've already won once in the day, and it's still 7:30 in the morning. Why not keep winning, right? So for me, the morning routine is absolutely everything. And that, what I just said, doesn't cost any money. It only costs you a little bit of discipline.
Brother, I appreciate it. This was a pleasure. This was one of my favorite conversations I've had in a while. I learned a lot. Hopefully you learned a little bit too. If you did, if you like this, if you made it this far, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. New interviews every Tuesday at 10 a.m. with the biggest entrepreneurs in the world. And check out my website, tomward.com. We do 2 articles a week with lessons we learn from people like you. So thanks for watching, guys.